let's get to the meat of this. We will soon hear from 3 advisors who have all the hallmarks of a Barron's top-ranked advisor, and that's because all 3 are. We're going to talk about mostly practice management, maybe a few other subjects. So let's welcome to the stage Chris, Richard, and Christina. Come on out. So thanks, guys. Before we get started, I think it's helpful for the audience to get a better sense of the context of your comments. If you just explain a little bit about your practice yourself. Chris, start with you.
Sure. The Cooke Financial Group's been around 52 years now, started by my father, John Cooke, and we began at wirehouses, but a small wirehouse, Thompson McKinnon Securities, which was bought by Prudential, which was merged into Wachovia, which then became Wells Fargo. About 2016, our group broke away and became independent, formative time for us. We manage a couple $1 billion on behalf of about 800 client families and have a team of 12.
Gotcha. Richard?
I'm Richard Joyner. I'm the president of Tollison Wealth Management, which is a single location, multifamily office based here in Dallas. I spent about 20 years in public accounting, and a client of mine in 1997 had a liquidity event, started a single family office for himself and his family. That business morphed into a multifamily office, and I joined in 2003. We serve about 210 families and have about 200 people. Most of the families we serve are multi-generational families of wealth.
That's a nice ratio there. Christina?
Hi, I'm Christina Collins, and I am affiliated with Northwestern Mutual as a private wealth advisor. And I like to say that what I do best is take complicated information and make it easy to understand, and I help people retire. That is the main focus of my practice. I have 5 people on my team, and we serve several hundred households and manage just under $1 billion in assets.
So I do want to focus on growth, how you guys have become so successful, what you do with your clients. But there's just a little bit of activity in the markets right now that might be worth touching on before we start. So Christine, I'll stick with you. The bear market became official this past week. How are you dealing with that in terms of what you're saying to your clients, how you're holding their hand through all this?
Right. Well, I have a bear market plan put together that we pull out and dust off every time this happens to help us stay focused on.
I'm going to announce something called
Into a multifamily office, and I joined in 2003. We serve about 210 families and have about 200 people. Most of the families we serve are multi-generational families of wealth.
That's a nice ratio there. Christina?
Hi, I'm Christina Collins, and I am affiliated with Northwestern Mutual as a private wealth advisor. And I like to say that what I do best is take complicated information and make it easy to understand, and I help people retire. That is the main focus of my practice. I have 5 people on my team, and we serve several hundred households and manage just under $1 billion in assets.
So I do want to focus on growth, how you guys have become so successful, what you do with your clients. But there's just a little bit of activity in the markets right now that might be worth touching on before we start. So Christine, I'll stick with you. The bear market became official this past week. How are you dealing with that in terms of what you're saying to your clients, how you're holding their hand through all this?
Right. Well, I have a bear market plan put together that we pull out and dust off every time this happens to help us stay focused on what's really important and will best help us help our clients. For example, one of the things on that list is my reaching out to those clients that I know are more likely to be nervous and just checking in with them and making sure they're okay. Also, I intentionally leave a little extra room on the calendar, so if someone is nervous, we can get them on the schedule right away and I can talk to them. We regularly send out marketing communications as to what's happening in the market, so we just make sure we're staying in touch. We also watch for emails that come in or phone calls that come in and make sure that anyone who's nervous is prioritized.
We spoke to an advisor in late April of 2020, right after COVID, market in free fall, and she gave great advice. She said, you need to pick up the phone when it's heaviest. Richard, what are you doing?
Well, it's much the same.
Okay.
Lots and lots of contact, which is our normal routine. But in a time like this, you focus on the people that are nervous, and you remind them of the goals that they have long term.
Right.
Focus on the long term.
Advisors get mad at me when I say you train them well. They say, I'm not running a kennel, but it's true. Over time, they realize, yeah, you guys have it covered. Chris, anything from you?
I would echo all of those thoughts. The nervous clients getting a little more attention, or a lot more attention, as the case may be. And I think that refocusing people on the long term, and that the diversification, all the steps we've taken, the asset allocation moves we've made over the last 2 years, that it may not be perfect, we're down, but it's helped. And remind them of that, and allow them to participate when it recovers.
All right. So let's step back a little bit and talk about your evolution as advisors. You're all very, very successful. You're at the top of your craft. Was there a light bulb moment, Chris, where you had some vision and realized, oh, here's how I'm going to be great? Or was it more of a development over the decades?
Well, clearly, I think it's an evolution and a development over the decades, but your life experiences to some point lead you to critical moments when you say something's got to change. And one of those critical moments, I think for me, we had a terrific group of clients, many of whom do local venture capital or local real estate deals and things. And they'd always say, you're my advisor, help me with that. And I'd say, I'm not allowed to do that at the wirehouse. And I felt a big gap. After some real thought and some real soul searching, we elected to leave our wirehouse and go independent, and it was a big step. But I find that the ability to serve these needs, the ability to really do more estate planning, I'm a tax attorney by background, do more estate planning, to do more with the private deals locally, to engage more with some of my local friends who are putting those deals together, has made a huge difference in our practice. And then I would also acknowledge that many of the owners of businesses in our community would say, I really kind of admire what you've done, and they appreciate us more that we're also a business owner, as opposed to when we were merely an employee of that big firm.
Sure, that makes sense. And a local business owner.
And a local business owner.
Christina?
My big transition point was 2008. In 2008, I had a baby. I bought another book of business through which I doubled the assets that I was managing, and more than doubled the number of households that I was responsible for. And you may remember something else significant that happened in 2008. It was a challenging year. And I spent 2 years actually working and integrating in that new book of business. And I had 1,300 households that I was responsible for. And the people in that book were often right on the verge of retiring, and obviously the world was in chaos. It was challenging. What we ended up doing was finding a good home for about 1,000 of those households, and I kept the 300 that were really a good fit for me, serious about retirement, want to have a plan, want to avoid the big mistakes, a C client or better within my book. I had to also redefine my segmentation and think again about who was a target client, because I just didn't have capacity to bring on very many other new people, as really this book was equivalent to a lot of new clients. So that has kept me very focused over the years on where do we bring value, where are we important, where are we needed, and then which are the clients where I can find them a better fit somewhere else.
So you've just illustrated perfectly what we've seen in so many top advisors. When you look backwards, it was not a straight line. You see, they shrunk to grow, and that's exactly what they did. They decided, okay, this is our value proposition, this is the proper client, we're going to shed the ones that don't fit that, and over the long term, that bore great fruit, but it's painful to do at the time. Richard?
So I'd like to say it was a single light bulb that occurred, but it, like everybody else, it was clearly an evolution. Our evolution came as a single-family office that grew into a multifamily office, and so I think there were a series of events that because we were a family-owned business and could make our own decisions, we could make decisions to try things and see if they worked or not. So we listened a lot to our clients as to what they needed, and then we added lines of business. We provide trust services. We built teams around philanthropy and other service lines completely in response to what our clients ask for. And then I think the magic for us is the ability to coordinate and execute, the ongoing execution for our families, because we are always there working for them.
Is there anything particular that you do to make sure that that execution is always going to be there?
We've built all of our systems around that from day one.
Okay.
And so we have CRM systems, and all of our processes are designed not to be event focused, estate planning, and then it's done. It's estate planning, and then we look at it every 6 months, make sure there aren't any tweaks or changes or updates. And so I think that's just built into our process.
Gotcha. One of the things that struck us during COVID was, obviously it was a very rough time, especially in the beginning, and the advisors we would speak to were almost chagrined because things were going so well. With the good advisors, their phone was ringing off the hook, not just with their clients who were worried, but with new clients whose advisors just weren't treating them well. And so they would tell us, we just had our best year ever, and they hated to say it, given what was going on in the world. What have you done, Chris? What did you do, you think, that prepared you so when COVID hit, you guys were ready for it? And anything you're changing as a result of what you learned?
Well, I think the first thing that helps us during a COVID crisis is that our clients generally have been with us a very long time. I'm not so sure we're terrific at client, new client collection, but I think we're fantastic at current client
has some
retention.
ideas on that, so we'll talk.
Yeah, and I think the clients who've been with us a long time have experienced some ups and downs. We said all along that we really felt like the marketplace could adapt to COVID. We kept them not only invested, but we added investments in areas that we thought showed more promise. And it scares someone when they're nervous, and you say, "No, we're going to put more to work."
Sure.
But if you can do it
Greedy when others are fearful.
Yeah, if you can do it and have a little success at it, then they really trust you the next time. And so it gets easier and easier, frankly, as you go through more and more crises. That doesn't help with the newest clients. They need a little more attention and hand-holding. Sure. But it's always a process, and the process keeps coming back to the same fundamentals.
Richard, anything to add there?
So I think that we were ready for COVID because we had built a solid structure. We had good teams in place that could operate and make decisions quickly. We had the technology and all that. So I think we managed that really well. During the pandemic, the growth just skyrocketed. I think as people thought about, they were more aware of their mortality and the risk of health issues and all that. And I think it really created a big inflow of clients. Our focus really shifted pretty quickly from developing growth to managing growth, which is a totally different focus. Sure. And we probably pivoted and made the most adjustments, thinking about how we attract and retain talent. Because very quickly you had this great resignation occur, and in any of our businesses, continuity of people is really, really important. And so we really had to focus on culture and people and talent retention.
Gotcha. I do want to talk about that a little bit, but sticking here, is there anything you want to talk about in terms of COVID, Christina, or I'm kind of champing at the bit to hear about the point that you raised earlier, which is bringing in new clients?
No, I have nothing to add. I think you guys said it really well.
Good. So let's jump straight to referrals, because you've been systematic about this.
Yes. So a strategy that I use for referrals is to plan ahead and send, it used to be a letter, now it's an email, to my ANA Plus clients before I meet with them when I intend to talk about referrals, when that will be on the agenda. I give them a little heads up about that, and I remind them in writing who it is I work best with and the different ways in which I can work with people, because I may be paid off of assets that we're managing, or I may be charging a fee, and not every client may remember that we have these different ways of working with others. So I put that all in the email and say this is going to be on the agenda, and then when it comes to the meeting, one, I've told them, which I feel is a courtesy to them, because otherwise I want that meeting really to be fully about them. That's their time, their space. So I want to give them that courtesy of notifying them, but also it gives me something to hang my hat on, because now I have to ask for referrals because I told them it was on the agenda, and I better well keep time for it. And I use that as an opportunity to teach my clients how to talk about what I do with others, and to have them articulate clearly what it is that I do, and to know who it is I want to work with.
It's great self-discipline. Once it's in that email, you got to do it. It's hard to bring up, but so we can go on referrals. But everything you guys have said so far has all in a way, boiled down to preparation. Everything that's been thrown at you, you already have a system in place to deal with it. And that goes back to how you actually structure your firms. So happy to go on with referrals. Richard, if you have anything to throw in there, but you guys have interesting and different, each of you has different structures. So let's go there. Chris, tell us about how your firm is structured to solve all these problems.
Well, I think of our Cooke Financial Group, our internal firm, solving for client needs as a manufacturing line. From the person who makes the arrangements for the appointment, to the person who prepares all the documentation, to my review, to the follow-up, and so on. And as long as that manufacturing line keeps flowing, we touch every client regularly with regular updates, and we keep our goals and objectives intact and forefront, and that works really well. But I think there's a second layer of organizational structure that I find more interesting today, and it relates to our larger firm, Sanctuary Wealth, which is I believe that we've got this group of older advisors who are sunsetting and maybe electing some kind of a package or just making decisions about what to do. That opens up to M&A. We've got this younger group of advisors that are looking to inherit those accounts, and many of those younger advisors within the big firms are signing long non-competes. They acquire a book of business, but they also acquire a bit of a ball and chain that holds them back in the future. It's the middle group of advisors who are too young to be interested in succession planning, and they're too successful to be interested in signing a non-compete. And I think that younger group is an incredible target market for this audience, for independent space, because they want to own what they've built, and they want to build further on what they've built. And boy, we're just being handed an opportunity for structuring our firms and acquiring some of those people, pulling them into our existing firms and growing our base. And I think that opportunity's never existed like it does today. Never. May never again.
Do you have a written succession plan to hang on to those people?
We do.
Okay, that's great.
And we're working on it all the time to improve it.
Sure.
It's not perfect.
Yep. Richard?
Structure is always an interesting question for me. We have, as you might have heard earlier, about 200, 210 families and about the same number of people. So structurally, we are a people-intense business, and we designed it that way, but we're also looking for the opportunities to continue to add efficiency in our process and give those people more time to engage directly with clients. I think the challenging part of the structure in our case is the fact that we have so many service lines. So we have trust teams and bill pay and accounting and all of these tax teams and so on. And the challenge is to make sure that you are executing day-to-day collaboratively. So you have people that come from different backgrounds, different professional outlooks, different personalities. But the trick is you have to have them collaborating every day, every time that you're interacting with a client. And so for us, that in making sure that we have a structure that encourages that kind of behavior and rewards it is really, really important to our success.
Gotcha. Christina? I saw your eyebrows raised at that one.
I have a very different structure because I'm technically self-employed, affiliated with Northwestern Mutual, so I have a small team under me, and I am looking to slowly expand that team and slowly build a little more breadth and depth to the team. Right now, I'm the only person that's meeting with clients, and I tell people my job is to be in meetings with clients, helping them get clear about their values, dreams, goals, hurts, and anxieties. And then my second part of my job is to give clear instruction to my team. And my team is great, and they take care of everything else. So we do need to build out just a little bit more capacity, but I'm not ready to transition out yet. I'm just starting that process.
Let's talk about those meetings, because they changed in March of 2020. And so I'd be interested in hearing about all of your views on technology and how you maintain a personal touch in an area where you're on mute, as somebody said earlier today.
Oh, wait, I have to get myself off of mute.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's been really different with what we've been going through with COVID, and thank goodness for technology. Thank goodness for what we've been able to do there. I think getting the personal touch with technology takes a lot of thought to get the best of both and to put the two together. One example of that is with Zoom. I am unfortunately doing most of my meetings on Zoom these days. Fortunately and unfortunately, I'm glad for Zoom, but I really miss in-person meetings. For me, those are like eating candy. That's just so much fun. But I wanted to make Zoom professional and a little more personal, so I hired someone to help me design my background, and I took kitty art. My kids are now teenagers. There will be no more art. But I have these wonderful pieces that I adore, so I got those framed. I put them on my wall. I had help getting my camera lined up and my lighting right with the ring light, and worked on the audio. And it's very professional. And people often comment, and so it's engaging. It's engaging for everyone, too. So that's an example of personalization and technology and bringing the two together.
Richard, anything in particular from you?
Sure. I think when the pandemic struck, I think we did a great job of adapting from a communication standpoint. But our business is one that really relies on a lot of personal touch. And so through the course of the pandemic and then onward, it strikes me that within our families, a lot of the communication expectations of our families have changed. So while we were able to do things that we weren't able to do before, I remember one family meeting that we had, a small group of people, and one of the family members was joining from Thailand. And you could literally hear the crickets outside on their patio from here, and it just struck me how it gave us the ability to bring together people geographically differently than we were able to do previously. But then as things progressed, I think our families are really dying to reconnect. Mm-hmm. They want to be with one another, and it's almost a sense of urgency to be together, to connect for social, to have fun together. And I think they realize they lost something during the pandemic, and they really want to do more about connecting with one another. So this next week, I'll be going to Colorado for a family meeting. We'll have 75 or 80 family members together. It's the first really big family meeting that we've done in a while, and I think it's just going to be incredible. People are just dying to be there and share that family time.
And then the clients I assume that's not one enormous family.
It is one enormous family.
No.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Alrighty. That's a lot of accounts for you guys to manage. So you're not actually one-to-one. A single family is 80 people.
A family can be a large family. Yes.
Yeah. Chris, any thoughts on this?
I would echo a lot of the things that are said here, but I think COVID changed our perception of what's important. COVID took the attention off of maybe investments and put the attention back on values and relationships in many ways. And so you're trying to say thank you and I value this relationship, and you're doing it through Zoom. And for us, I guess the key touch point was we built a new office, and we had a Zoom room that we built, which is better lighting, better video, better mics, and that helps a bit, but it's still artificial. And we used it to, I think, great effect when we had to do Zoom meetings. But like you, I think we're dying to get back together and have these in-person meetings, and our clients are coming back quickly. And I think that personal touch is still invaluable. But we also found, thinking about this value system, and it became so important, how do we convey it to next gen? And so we started putting our Zoom room to work recently. I call it a beta test. It's not operational in the way I want it yet. But we'll put a client couple in our Zoom room with us and take a video or a recording of talking about what are their values about money, what do they want to share with their heirs. We start with the value system and fears and concerns and hopes, and then we might even go down to some very basic ideas like, where's the will kept? Who's in charge? If something happens to you, what are we going to do? And we tape that. And I can't tell you that we've gotten to the point where we've shared one of those tapes with a family after the person passed away, but I really think that's going to be an impactful, emotional, value-intensive moment, and I'm finding just putting it on tape is a very emotional, value-intensive, engaging thing, and again, it's putting the Zoom room and the applications that we've learned how to utilize into practice now in person with a recording. And so all these things are coming together, and it is a little bit of drinking out of a fire hose, but in some ways a far better experience.
Yeah, that will be very emotional when you have to start showing those to...
I think it'll be an interesting time.
Yeah.
Maybe scary.
Richard's jumping in.
I was going to add one other thing that I think has been interesting. It's fascinating to me how philanthropy has sort of become a lightning rod for values discussions. So when you're dealing with multiple generations, and we went through this time period where social justice and all of these related things came to the forefront, young people seem to find a voice that they didn't have before. If they were in a family foundation discussion, they might not have been so brave about raising conversations that were difficult with older family members. But during this time period, they found that voice. And even though when they first started doing it, it wasn't always smooth, sometimes it was a rough start, I think it really brought some interest, it brought some values clarification to family groups that might not have occurred in any other kind of a setting. And so even though the young people wanted to bring their values into the conversation, they also generally want to respect the values of their parents and their grandparents. And so as they worked to the point that they came to some consensus on values, I think that's been fascinating to watch how that's occurred, and I think it'll accelerate a lot of the family's progress in some of those areas.
I would think that conversation could be difficult. A 20-year-old has a very different worldview from an 80-year-old.
Yeah, absolutely. And some of them had never expressed it before, and so it came out angry, it came out abrupt, it came out in other ways. And once you've done something like that, and you've done it a few times, it gets easier.
Okay.
I'd like to jump in and just say the learning in that moment goes both ways.
Yeah,
the 80-year-olds are probably learning as much as the 20-year-olds. That's fascinating to me. I think that'd be exciting, personally.
It is.
And might be more open to the learning than the 20-year-old.
Absolutely.
It's like lightning in a bottle, right?
Yeah.
Christina?
I agree with all of that. I think that COVID has changed the way people think and how they prioritize and what's important to them. And one of the great things about what we do is being able to be there and help facilitate and help watch people's lives unfold and watch the decisions that they're making influence their financial security and that of future generations and of the world. So, yeah, it's a great privilege to be in our seats.
So another interesting dynamic in your industry about those 20, 30, 40-year-olds, of course, is are they going to stick with you? As everybody's seen the Capgemini numbers and everything else about how after the first spouse dies, I mean, I'm citing one study and there's different numbers, but one study showed that after the first spouse dies, there's a 50% retention rate in the industry of the survivor. And the really shocking number was that 2% of the children stay with mom and dad's advisor. And 2% is probably because they've just forgot to do anything about it. So that's really bad. Now, I know on this stage, very different numbers, probably in this room, very different numbers, but it's still an issue. So I'd like to talk about how you guys are maintaining the next generation, what you're doing to bring them along now. Who wants to start, Chris?
Yeah, there's no question that this has got to be front and forefront because not only are the financial advisor world aging, but our clients are aging and this baby boom generation's aging. We just brought in one of my children, my 27-year-old son is one of our next gen people. We've also got a terrific 34-year-old lady that is just dynamo and a great leader. And the next generation members of these families are much more inclined to relate to them than to me, but we have to engage them on so many levels. And if our clients are having grandchildren, we need to be engaging the children and the grandchildren with the 529 discussion and other things and being present. And if you miss those moments, then by God, you've missed those moments. You deserve to lose them when mom and dad go. But if you've been present in those moments, I think you'll find you retain most of those kids. I think so.
Christina?
I'm within the Northwestern Mutual system. So my focus is really helping people retire and be retired successfully. And I don't really have a very strong skill set in helping that next generation. But within my larger organization, it exists. There's a lot of talent. So what I have worked to do is transition the children when they're ready to someone that's a good fit for them to take care of them well. That's how I manage that process. So I can stay very focused on what I do well.
Gotcha. All right. Richard?
So our business is a little bit different. This gets back to your light bulb question earlier. In our case, the trust business, where we serve as corporate trustee, is a big part of our business. And so when you serve as a corporate trustee or co-trustee, you're by definition working with multiple generations. And so I think it puts us in a position where it's an easy process to initiate that. We've tried to go much further than that, of course, by bringing in, we have an area of our business that focuses on learning and leadership development, skill building, and things like that with those younger generations. And so for us, that has turned into an opportunity to really build those connections early. And I think that'll be very valuable for us. So it's a little bit of that is built into the business model.
Do you assign an individual advisor to a family member? I mean, so if you're working with the matriarch and patriarch,
Yes.
do you say, hey, 40, 30-year-old member of my team, go work with the kids?
Yes, we try to match the advisor to whatever the preference of the client is.
Yeah.
And surprisingly, the young kids usually don't pick me.
Really?
I'm shocked by that, but no, I think it's perfectly natural and normal, and I think it makes them work better together.
Yeah. I'm struck over and over again at how all the best teams are doing this. One example, there was an advisor who he got a cold call after an individual sold his firm for $1.1 billion. And naturally, this guy had wealthy friends who had made referrals, but he flipped through Barron's. This guy was number 17 on the list. I mean, he didn't call the number one guy. And he ended up winning not a sleeve, but the entire book of business. And I said, what did you say in that pitch meeting? And I don't think this was false humility. He said, it wasn't me. It was that my younger generation in my firm met with the children. This guy was in his 70s, and he was worried about the kids' relationship, and that's what won the business. So it is so important to have
Such an important topic.
Yeah. Chris, anything to add on this?
No, I just think if you don't think this is an important topic, I think you're missing the boat. This next transfer of wealth from, again, this older generation of advisors that's been out there, I'll call it my father, to this next generation of advisors, I'll call it my children or my team. I think if you don't catch your share of that, then you've really missed something. And I think we've been waiting on this as these advisors have aged during this bull market. And I think what we're going to go, oh my God, I can't believe that was so fast, is they're going to hit a point of frustration, whether it's this bear market or something else, and they're going to all retire at once. Yep. You're either ready or you're not. And I think if we're there, we're going to win big.
Yeah, Cerulli just had a report out about the coming wave of retirements. It's going to be
big.
Yeah.
It's here. Yeah.
And so that leads naturally to, okay, how you're placing yourself or these others. How is the industry doing this? Finding talent is a problem across the entire business world right now, as we well know. The economy is stumbling a little bit, and unemployment is still below 4%. So what are you guys doing to find talent? Christina, do you get some help from the mothership on this, or are you on your own? Nope.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
No, we're technically self-employed, and so this is something we do. But I like that, because I like that I get to hire who I want to hire and train them the way I want and supervise them the way I want. I look to hire from minority-owned and women-owned smaller recruiting firms. I've had tremendous luck finding a lot of great talent through those sources, and I think it's important to hire people that are a good fit for my team and fit in with our culture and our clients, so I look for that. But then it's really important, I think, to take great care of them. So I listen to my team members, and I encourage them, I support them, I hold them accountable, I help them develop, and they know they're important, they know they're valued, and I think then that inspires them and carries over to how they then care for our clients. And I have had great continuity of tremendous talent on my team. It's building win-wins.
Two interesting issues there. There's the team development, but also the diversity issue. And I think the industry is finally waking up to the importance of diversity. What I've said is not only are there sort of the obvious things, like if you want diverse clients, you need to have a diverse team, but I think there's a lack of understanding at the generational view of diversity. When my father looks at a website and he sees 6 guys in suits and ties, white guys, oh, businessmen, okay, that looks good to me. When my 18-year-old daughter, who is as white as I am, looks at 6 older white guys in ties, she's like, what the hell's that? That's not the world that I'm living in. And she would not hire people who look like that. She wants to see something very different. And often then the next question you get is, okay, but I can't find anybody. It sounds like you've nailed that. Is there any more advice to how people can actually find diverse team members?
I think it depends on the role that you're hiring for.
Yep.
Some roles don't require any particular technical background and expertise, and then I'm looking for people who have a strong customer service background and orientation, and I don't even require a college degree for that type of a role. I think that a college degree eliminates some people that are very talented but haven't had that opportunity coming in an entry-level role. So it's just being a little bit more creative about how you find that talent. It's out there.
How are you guys finding talent, Chris?
I would say there's two layers of talent, right? One layer is clearly this technical financial advisor licensed layer, and it's tough. I think you got to look at some of the younger folk coming out of college and that want to be in our industry and help encourage them. But I think it takes time to go from a 22-year-old graduate to a, say, 32-year-old qualified financial advisor. It's hard to be 22 and have someone put their money in your hands. So I think you need to really have a team or some development process to get there. And that's, you got to be willing to put in the time and the money and the investment of your coaching to get those people from start to where they're really competent to do what you need them to do. The second layer is that service layer, and I find if I get a fantastic waitress or if I get a fantastic person at the bank helping me do something, I apparently don't hit the couch. If I get a fantastic person, I may well say, would you be interested to come interview with us? And a couple of our best hires have been the young lady or the young man who served me somewhere, but their customer service focus was what I noticed. And I said, would you like to do something different than you're doing now? And then I think the next layer of that is just, do you engage them when they come to your office? You know, I think we might all realize now you probably need a ping pong table or you probably need something. And that's new, but it's fun.
Sure.
We have a bar, a ping pong table, and a pickleball court out back.
Really? Wow.
I hope that helps with retention. We'll see.
We'll see, right?
We'll see.
Time will tell. So a couple of things that I would say that we've had some success with. One is we've built much deeper relationships with some of the schools that are feeder schools, and that we've had success hiring from. We've built deeper relationships. We're making much more use of internship type programs where we bring summer students in and give them what we hope is a very good experience, and we can see them, they can see what we do. In addition to that, we've started offering some of those interns the opportunity to work part-time during the school year, so that we continue to get to see their work and they get to make some money and do some things that are good. We've had a lot of success soliciting internal referrals. So we pay referral bonuses. Our current employees are probably the best culture screens.
Sure.
They know what it takes to succeed in an organization like ours, and that turned out to be very, very successful. And the last thing I would mention is that we actually stole this from Pershing years ago, is the reverse mentoring program. We've been doing that now. I've probably been through 6 or 7 cohorts of it, but it pairs a senior person in the organization with one of the youngest members of our organization, and it's not the senior person mentoring. The senior person is the mentee. And I can tell you, from my standpoint, I've been through it 6 or 7 times, and it's an amazing tool to learn how the younger generation sees things. You just learn a lot about the different lens through which they see the world. And it's been so helpful as a more senior leader to be able to gain that insight and perspective from them. That's been a good retention tool.
I've heard this twice now, and I'm blown away by that. That is my action item. I'm going to take away from this and say, I'm going home and I'm going to make that happen.
It's worth the effort.
And it's not just for me, which I think I need it badly, but it's for my brother and a couple of my other partners and the whole elder group, I guess. I love that.
Pershing. Soon you'll be, using Snapchat.
Yeah, something.
So let's turn this backwards. Let's get some mentoring for you guys. The front row here, a lot of students. First of all, good job sitting in the front row. That's like life lesson number 1 there. Awesome. What advice can you give students who might want to be sitting on this couch in 10, 20, 30 years in terms of how to succeed in this industry? Chris?
Well, don't be afraid to reach out. It is not a one-way street here. It is a two-way street. And I can tell you that a couple of my finest people, dear beloved friends and coworkers, they sought our group out and said, I've read about you, I've heard about you, and I want to know what it takes to be part of the Cooke Financial Group. And those now are people who are key parts of the Cooke Financial Group. But they found me, and I was impressed that they took the time and the energy to both reach out, schedule meetings, and then to basically tell me why they belonged. That's an impressive bunch of confidence, and if you exude that, your odds of being discovered are much higher. And so exude that confidence. Go get what you want. Don't wait for us to call you. That's
Now,
my first piece of advice.
You will often hear somebody who's a little shy about doing, am I going to come off as a jerk or whatever? Is there anything they need to do to dial it back? At what part of that conversation do they admit to knowing what they don't know?
Yeah, obviously, confidence means you made the first move. You asked to come visit with me. Pushy is when you've called me 8 times in a row and you know I'm busy. I've said I appreciate it and we'll get together. Be persistent, but never cross that line and be obnoxious.
Gotcha.
And I think there's a delicate fine line in there. It might vary with who you're speaking with or what geography you're in, or the Midwest might be different than other places. I don't know, but you got to find a way to be confident, aggressive, persistent, but not pushy or obnoxious. That's my advice.
I'll add something to that. I taught my kids to ask for things 3 times. The first no is an automatic no. For the second no, they have to come back and state their case a little more clearly. Maybe they'll get a yes. But after they've asked 3 times, they better not ask again, because now it's getting rude. And so that's how I would answer that question about what's the difference between being persistent and being pushy.
Actually, I spoke to an advisor coach once whose kid thing was when they're in the store, if you can spend $10, whatever. If you ask for more once, it goes down to 9. Ask again, goes down to 8. And you learn real quick. Richard?
So first of all, I think the point is great. Reach out is a terrific idea. I'm a sucker for somebody who calls and says, I really want to learn more about the profession. I loved having the opportunity to do that. And I think most of the advisor industry actually does the same thing. So I think reaching out and doing it in that curious way is a great way to start the process. The other things that I would say is you have to be a lifelong learner. Mm-hmm. This industry covers such a breadth of technical material, and it changes every week. You have to be a constant learner. And then the other thing that I would say for the students particularly is when you get into your work life, learn to take smart risks. I think so many people, we see the wonderful side of the world on social media, and we think nobody ever has a down day or a bad day, but I think that discourages people from trying things and risking failure. But I think if you don't fail sometimes, mm-hmm. you're never going to learn anything.
Yeah, absolutely.
So those are my things.
Okay, the trick is to figure out the smart risk versus the dumb risk.
That's right. but that's where you develop a network internally, and you have people that guide you and help you make those decisions.
Yeah.
So you're not taking a bet the firm kind of a risk.
So I water ski about 5 mornings a week, and I have a phrase that I say with all my friends that is, if I'm not falling, I'm not trying.
Yeah.
I better fall.
And don't sell yourself short. You're not doing what most people think when they think water skiing.
We're having a good time. It's my gym, but that
you didn't wear skis.
But that sentiment of if I'm not falling, I'm not trying,
yep.
applies to business too.
Yep.
And I know we're going to make some probably pretty bad mistakes, but hopefully we made 2 or 3 great decisions for every one mistake, and someday you wake up and you say, wow, this worked out pretty well. I go back to the students again, though, and I would say not only to maybe get that job or get that position in a great firm, but if you want to rise up within that great firm, don't be afraid to ask for more. In other words, that same persistence and that same confidence, don't wait for someone to say, you're in charge of this. Go to your boss and say, I think I should be in charge of this. And I think you'll find you get there much faster.
And even better, figure out the solution, how you're going to solve that problem before you go to your boss.
Even better.
Yeah, and then say, I should be in charge of it, and here's what I'm going to do when I get there. Not, I want to be in charge of it because I want a promotion.
Let me share a little bit about my background with regard to that question. So I started out originally in a support role for 7 years, and I liked that role very much, and I learned a ton, and it was a very difficult transition to decide to move to the other side of the desk and be in the client-facing position. And sometimes I wish I hadn't waited quite as long to make that change, but because I did wait when I transitioned, I was ready, and I had all the technical knowledge and relationships ready to go. And within our culture, there's a lot of joint work. So I was immediately asked to do joint work with some of our top salespeople, and I had all of these great people telling me what I was doing wrong, which was great. That was exactly what I needed to hear. And I learned a ton, and I had a mentor who supported me immensely and helped me. So I guess my advice would be to absolutely cross those lines, take those emotional risks, do it with good support around you, and also some things that were shared with me early on that I thought were helpful were I segmented my clients right from the beginning. I figured out who are the people that like to work with me, that I like to work with, and how do I find more of them? And I didn't wait too long on that. I think that was very helpful. And some other advice I got early on was to sit on the same side of the table as the client metaphorically. So I've always been very focused on client service. And some of that comes from my 7 years in a frontline service role within the organization. But I just feel that's so key. So I would echo that and add a few other pieces.
We are out of time, but I do want to ask you just one question, because so many people have a problem with this, Christina, which is, how did you find the mentor? We all hear we're supposed to have a mentor, but sometimes people have trouble breaking the ice, having that conversation. How do you find a mentor? Any advice?
Well, it turns out it was my boss. So I got hired well.
Yeah. But maybe
I
being
had,
open to advice is one thing.
Yes, I looked at some other roles that I did not accept even when they were offered, and I felt that that was the right role in which I could learn the most and that we understood one another. And I was absolutely right about that. And 95% of the time we'd see things the same way. So we were able to really work together very, very well, and I learned a ton through that.
So we have a tradition at Barron's where we don't let people leave the stage without a concise, actionable idea. And in a case like this, I don't like asking that because we've just had 40 minutes of great actionable ideas, but I'm gonna hit you up for one more from each of you. Richard, you wanna start?
I'll be glad to. My one actionable idea is take some amount of time every single day and think about what you are not going to do. Prioritizing what you're not going to do gives you so much more focus and clarity.
Yeah,
it's an important discipline.
Gets awfully long. Chris?
I think I'm going to go with COVID's changed the world and it's changed our outlook on certain things, and I'm going to say video, 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 video. If you don't have some video on your website, you're not communicating to the world effectively. If you don't have some video capability of a Zoom studio or however you're doing it that's clear and concise, you're missing out. And I think in the future, whether it's a podcast or a YouTube channel or whatever it may be, if you're not communicating with the world that way, you're missing out.
And take us home, Christina.
So my advice is to also prioritize taking care of yourself by taking at least a day a week where you do not work. You do not think about work. You don't read industry publications. You don't think about that client case in the shower. No, 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 nothing. Take a complete and full break so that you can come back energized and creative in working with clients.
And that is a great place to end it. Thank you guys for being an awesome panel. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Zach.
Thank you to Pershing for hosting us, and thanks for being a great audience. Cheers.